It was through the PNP scene that I learned that there is actually hope. My name is Kevin De Silva. I grew up in Cambridge, Ontario. I thought I was straight for most of high school. I dated the same girl for 4 years. I was a victim to peer pressure, and I would just kind of do whatever was available. Mostly it was like things like ecstasy and cocaine, but once in a while crystal meth would show up. It was more of a, snort a bump here or there. And then it became sort of a smoking in people's homes at people's parties. And it was much more of an event than a necessity. When I was starting to slam, it became sort of the intro to now we're going to get into the sex part. So we're all gonna slam so that we lose our inhibitions and we can open up and become like more sexual beings rather than the awkward social freaks we are right now looking at each other, I was very nervous coming into the whole hookup scene and how to go about it. I didn't know much about sex. I didn't know much about things like douching. I didn't know how to ask or who to ask. And that was kind of tough. I always felt like I had to perform or had to be up at a certain level to meet up with the guys that were present, which later on in life I realized was such a fallacy. Most guys didn't know what they were doing, and most of the guys felt just as uncomfortable as the next, but they put on a front, where they felt, hey, I belong here. HIV was something I didn't know anything about. I didn't even know what it was. When my results came in, they told me that I'm HIV positive, which I thought was great news. So I'm like, oh, that's great. It's positive. Until he said, you obviously don't know what that is. And I'm like, apparently not. I remember the world changing color that day. It was just different. I walked outside and I felt so lost and so alone. I felt like it was too late to do anything about it. I'm gonna die of this strange AIDS disease, and how am I gonna tell my mom? And it was so long ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm not scared of it anymore, like I used to be. It was through the PNP scene that I learned that there is actually hope too. And there's lots of other people on this planet that were dealing with the same sorts of issues. And I thought I was the only one. That day, I thought I was the only one. You don't die from this disease. You live with it. You learn to live with it. It was a couple years after my diagnosis with HIV that I started to use intravenously. I could only speculate that it was then that I contracted the Hep C, and it was probably from a shared needle. I thought, oh wow, I'm really going downhill here. I am not getting better, but getting worse. I'm starting to contract something else that doesn't have real a treatment for. Back then, there was no real treatment like there is today. They were like, okay, we're gonna start your HIV meds. I don't know if that helped at all, or if that was responsible for it, but I was one of the lucky ones who caught it in time, and it was able to clear itself out of my system without any treatment. But when it really started to become low for me was when I lost my best friend to suicide. And Sandy was probably 35 at the time, and she had 3 beautiful children. She was the closest thing, I think, to me. It was kind of like a part of me died, and I didn't know how to cope with it. My life took a real nosedive at that point. I ended up losing my business. I ended up losing my partner at the time. I lost all of my belongings. I lost my home. There it goes again. I was homeless for a few months only in the summertime, and I think maybe a couple weeks over winter. The only way I could cope was to use drugs for a very different reason, to numb me, maybe to keep me not hungry, because hunger on the streets is the worst. It was so unbearably cold, and you just can't seem to find warmth unless you got a little high. Drugs became something more of a crutch that I depended upon. It was a survival thing at that point. not a fun thing anymore. Once you start to lose and you start rolling down the hill, it literally speeds up and just gets bigger and bigger inside you, and nothing gets resolved. You don't get any answers. She never comes back, you know. And more recently, it's become more of a common thing, unfortunately, and not, it doesn't get easier. It's a lot more complicated than just popping a pill and dancing your ass off or having sex with random strangers. It's deeper than that. You know, we're dealing with a multi-dimensional human being here, and not just a gay man with AIDS or just another addict. We're not less than human for some of the choices we've made. We're more human for being able to admit and to face some of the things we've been through. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It really does.